What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name's Stephen Wright, joined by Mr. William Monroe. How you doing, Will?
Doing well, Steve. We have a schedule that we can look at now for fantasy football and for the NFL.
We
Are
do.
you excited for the schedule release last week?
Yeah. I did not watch any of the videos except for the Titans.
Yeah, that one was cool.
The city one. Yeah, that was really good. And then I saw the Jets, the guy that could see like a millisecond of a city picture and know where it was. That was pretty impressive.
I didn't see that one. So I think the Chargers had an anime one. I didn't get to watch it, but I saw people commenting about that one.
Yeah, I think they did one last year, so I heard that they did it again. But I didn't see it. But yeah, I mean, the Titans one, there's nothing topping that. I'm just, why bother watching anything else? Yeah.
Yeah. Asking unsuspecting people to name a logo.
Yeah, for real.
That was really well done.
Yeah, that was good stuff. It did get me thinking as to why all the Carolina teams call themselves Carolina when the states themselves are either North Carolina and South Carolina. And they're all in North Carolina. Like, I don't.
Yeah, there's none in the other. So I guess they're kind of like they're both states teams, I guess, versus like the colleges are.
Yeah, it's just interesting because it's like across all the sports, right? Like you get Carolina Panthers, you got the Carolina Hurricanes, you have. I guess is that it? That is it.
Yes. Yeah, I think that.
Right, because
they don't have. They have the Charlotte Bobcats.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, that's one. Yeah, they don't call it Carolina; they call it Charlotte.
So there's one, but yeah, the rest of them are all Carolina. They don't really have a baseball team.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of like the Patriots call themselves New England.
Yeah, it's like the regions team.
Yeah, it's a region. Yeah, it's interesting. But anyway, we have a Dynasty startup here today. That's always fun, isn't it?
Yeah, man. It's always a good time to jump in and really see where the startup rankings are. I'm interested to see. I was just kind of looking through here what Sleeper has, and it seems like there's some guys that are a little lower than I thought. Some guys maybe higher. Feels like it's almost more of a mix of like a redraft and a dynasty rankings together.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just undervaluing some of the older guys.
Yeah, I mean, some people do. I think that is becoming a more popular thing of looking at your dynasty as if it is a redraft.
Yeah.
So maybe that's kind of like the new reality, and the ADPs are reflecting that, or
yeah, looks like that.
Yeah, it's possible. I am in the 2. Interesting spot. You're in the 9. I wish I was in the 9, but here we are. So yeah, are you ready to jump in and just get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
We do have 24 rounds set. I mean, we're just going to do an hour of podcasting and see how far we get. Hopefully,
see how far we go.
Yeah, hopefully a pretty good distance. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get it started up. Jamar Chase goes with the 101, who it's what I wanted at the 102.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucks.
It seems like 2 guys really that could be.
Yeah.
Unless you're going running back.
He's got the quarterback on lockdown. Where Justin Jefferson, maybe not.
Yeah, smidge younger, but virtually the same.
Bijan, though, is the second guy here on the ADP list. That is interesting. Like, we don't go running back early too often in our dynasties.
No.
But to get a rookie that looks to be like Bijan for 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's sour taste in your mouth now, but like Gurley had a crazy 5-year run. I think he had one really down year, but like, just that first contract was unreal. So I think that's where we're seeing Bijan getting vaulted into.
Yeah, which
out of his rookie draft.
That's good. The next ADP down is CMC. That I'd be not really interested in because he's a guy where you probably got 2 years or something, and then he's gone. Eckler, kind of the same boat. But I'm just going to do the easy one. I'll take Justin Jefferson. It's always fun to see what your running backs look like when you pull this off. But we'll go ahead and lock him in there. CeeDee Lamb gets up there, 103. Bijan fell, man. I was worried he's going to get to you.
Almost got back.
So Lamb with the 103. Patrick Mahomes, 104. CMC, Josh Allen. Bijan finally at 107. And Austin Eckler. Now you're back up.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jonathan Taylor's still there. Usually not a position that I'm wanting to take, but I do think that team is going to be good. Maybe not great, but I think from a fantasy perspective, I mean, you have, at the very least, I think kind of just the Hurts effect of an Anthony Richardson being able to run the ball and make the rushing team, overall better. Who knows if he'll, be the passer, but, Fields last year, hopefully that helps. So Jonathan Taylor's an interesting one here. There's still quite a few receivers and kind of like an older bunch of A.J. Brown, Cooper Kupp, Devon Diggs, Terry Kill all together there. You still have Barkley, Brees, Najee. So it's interesting. There's quite a few players. I'm just intrigued to see like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave way down there. And I feel like those would be higher from me than like a JSN who's there and Adams who's there.
Yeah, that might be where that ADP blend is coming from.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't make any sense to me either.
Yeah, right. Like I probably would want to get one of them, but at this point, interested to see if I do go with a running back here with JT. You should be able to get a receiver at the second round. So take JT and try it out. Cooper Kupp goes, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, Najee Harris, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill. So that group of receivers went. Brees Hall is very intriguing. 21, obviously coming off the injury, but someone that we're both pretty high on. Beyond him, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Kelsey still there for the first tight end. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Gibbs. So there's a lot of running backs there and some receivers that are a little bit later. So I'm kind of intrigued to see what happens if I go with two running backs here and get that Brees Hall to pair up with Jonathan Taylor, going more for like a win now type of move. But two guys I think value-wise are going to be worth a lot, even if you end up trying to trade them in the next year or two still. So I'm going to try it out. We're going to go Brees Hall, back-to-back running backs here with Jonathan Taylor. After him, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Kenneth Walker, and Joe Burrow. So quarterbacks are moving a little bit here.
Yeah, they are. Everyone wants to lock in their long-term quarterback. I was looking at the ADP and I saw Walker and Gibbs a little bit further down and got kind of excited, and then they jumped up.
They jumped quick, yeah.
So I'm facing the Travis Kelce question, whether you want to pull the trigger there and knowing you're going to get whatever 2 years, 1 to 3, who really knows, and then he's gone. Amon-Ra St. Brown is here, very interesting. JSN is up here. ETN is up here. That might be a nice young running back that you can get before they start dropping off into your older players. Like you said, you got Garrett Wilson is here, which is pretty interesting. Olave, yada, yada. I do think, I think I'm going to go ETN here. Get myself a younger running back. He's not young like a Bijan or a Gibbs. But, he's not Josh Jacobs or Barkley either. He's in that middle ground. So I should have a few more years out of ETN, get myself a running back here, and then we'll see what gets back to me. Amon-Ra goes, and then JSN. Just shame. Amon-Ra would have been nice to get back to me.
Yeah.
That would have been a big win.
Do you think ETN could have? Probably not.
I don't know. Probably not. But it's definitely possible. I mean, this team clearly isn't looking at a running back.
Yeah. Unless it was, just a big tier break after ETN to the next group.
Yeah. And there's nothing like you can't look at the roster and say, oh, he's going to do X. It's too early really for that.
Yeah. He's got 3 receivers, so needs everything but receiver at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking.
It's a good stack, though, for him.
It is.
St. Brown, JSN.
A young group, too. So, yeah. Well done. Well done. I was pretty convinced about just grabbing Garrett Wilson here, but Kelsey's still here.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pass him up, even if it's just like a year or two. It's like, man, he's just such next level player.
Yeah, you get the elite. But I think I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to draft Garrett Wilson. I don't know if he'd actually come in here on ADP. I mean, I guess depends.
Like he would. I mean, the way him and London and Olave really, established that they can play in the league, right? You may have some quarterback concerns and this and that, but they established that they are guys that can play.
So I'm thinking it might be too late. Like they should have went
Okay.
mid-second, but
Versus, yeah,
yeah, it depends on your league, like where they go in quarterbacks,
yeah.
if they're going to go wide receiver or
You,
running back. Like this was where
yeah,
running
you
back
could have
heavy.
a running back heavy draft, which is what we
Yeah.
had really.
Yeah, which is it.
Two
So
big runs of running back.
I'm going Garrett Wilson. Like you said, good season last year. He's got Aaron Rodgers now. He is the clear one on an ascending team. So we'll go ahead and lock in Mr. Wilson here. More running backs, Chubb and Henry. There goes Travis Kelce finally, 305. Devontae Adams, 306. Javonte Williams, interesting one, given he might be missing a lot of time this year, 307. And Swift at the 308.
Yeah, so I'm happy to see some running backs going there, given that I've already got two. And obviously, you're going to need depth, but having the two that I have, I'm pretty happy to see more going and seeing the receivers fall. So, one person to point out, Justin Herbert is pretty interesting here.
I thought about him too. Long-term
Yeah,
quarterback, yeah.
long term, lock that in. You still have Lamar Jackson, Fields, Lawrence, good players, but do we like them as much as we like Herbert? It is a one quarterback league, so I feel like there's just too many good receivers here that I'd rather double dip at receiver. So I think I'm going to go receiver here. If Herbert's still there for some reason next round, then maybe it's more tempting. But the tight end, we've only had Kelce go, so Andrews and Pitts are still there. I think I'd almost rather double dip with one of those two in a receiver. Receiver, we're looking at T. Higgins, DK Metcalf. We've got Deebo Samuel, Chris Olave, which, as we said, may or may not still be there in drafts. T. Higgins is an interesting one here. He's probably more of like a high floor, lower ceiling guy because he doesn't have that guy ahead. He does have the guy ahead of him there. Olave, 2 years younger at 22. I feel like Olave is my guy here. There's a chance he gets back, but I feel like in all likelihood in a real draft, he's not going to be going all the way down to there. Someone would take him. So we'd take him here and kind of hope one of the tight ends or a Devonta Smith or a Drake London get back to me here. So goes Olave, there goes T. Higgins, Debo, Joe Mixon and Herbert on the turn there, as we said, and then Dalvin Cook and DK Metcalf. So interesting that we still have the tight ends available in Andrews and in Pitts. There's still, other guys lower than that I don't mind, but 22-year-old Kyle Pitts definitely is interesting. I feel like I want to get something that has a little bit more production. You still have Mark Andrews there, which is another big one. Receiver, Devonta Smith still there, someone that I really like, and I think he's just gotten better every year. He's eventually going to step into the top role, maybe not right away, but a couple more years, I think, when he's ready for a new contract. But the way that offense goes, he looks to be the pick, but just looking at what we have at the other positions, Pollard, Kamara, Dobbins, Miles Sanders. So some decent RB3s if I really wanted to splurge on one. Definitely, needed some other positions a little more. Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence. Not really looking at quarterback. I mean, it was really Herbert was the guy there. So for me, it would be, if I wanted to go tight end, I want to go with Andrews or Pitts. And the way this team is built, I think probably would be Andrews if I want to go tight end. You have two running backs that are still on that rookie deal, so you probably got that 4 to 5 year window. Olave for future too, but and we like to build through the receiver position, so I don't want to go too far without getting multiple receivers. So I'm going to lock in Devonta Smith here as my second receiver to pair up with Olave. After him, Quentin Johnson, Tony Pollard, Zay Flowers, Alvin Kamara, Mark Andrews just goes off the board, and then Jordan Addison.
How do you pass up on Kyle Pitts at the 411?
I know, man.
I was not game planning on him being here.
And I mean, the other guy needs running backs, but man, pairing Kyle Pitts with those three, the person behind you.
Yeah, I know that would be. It's pretty crazy. And it's a shame because I like Drake London's here. And that's pretty solid. You start to get some veterans, so he's your last young one for a little while on ADP. Obviously running backs are going to start drying up. Damian Pierce is here, young. Cam Akers, if you want to take that gamble, your rookies. So This is tough, but I cannot pass up on Kyle Pitts as much as he burned me last year, and I half don't believe just the age, the high draft capital, the high profile. It's just too good of a value to pass up. So I'm going to lock him in. We'll see what gets back to me. There goes Drake London and Lamar Jackson. So this puts me in a kind of interesting spot. So wide receiver, I'm good passing on again and grabbing someone when they come back. At the running back position, you do got J.K. Dobbins, younger-ish. You got Miles Sanders, a new team, should be a bell cow, definitely help you this year. Rashad White, younger. Damian Pierce again, Cam Akers. Further down, you got your Brian Robinson, Pacheco. Oh man, Tyler Algier is still here. His ADP is definitely not going to be that great. But then looking at quarterback, Justin Fields, very young, rushing upside. We saw some breakout last year. Added some new weapons. Could I just lock down my quarterback position? That's where the Pitts problem comes in, because I don't want to go tight end quarterback back to back like this. I wanted to add one of them and the wide receiver, but Pitts fell. So I think I'm going to stick to my plan and just, I wanted Pitts and or Fields. I'm just going to go ahead and add both of them, lock down both positions. I won't have to worry about them for a little while, and then pluck off some more running backs and wide receivers here. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in Justin Fields. Feels kind of weird, but got that rushing upside in the 5th round, and he's young. I mean, that's hard to pass up. In fact, looking at the quarterbacks ahead, he's got more fantasy upside than Burrow and Herbert, I think, at this point, just given his legs. So I think that's pretty good value. Miles Sanders goes after me, then Michael Pittman, J.K. Dobbins, Keenan Allen, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans. You're back on the clock.
All right. So I've got 2 running backs, 2 receivers, pretty even, can really go any position right here. You guys, as you mentioned, you got Fields, so Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, some of the rookies, Anthony Richardson, Young, Stroud. Still got Deshaun Watson, Prescott, Tua. So still got some good options. I'm still in a situation where I could go with one of the rookies and then pair him up with a veteran a little later in the draft, or go with a guy like a Dak or a Tua that, Deshaun Watson, that could be just a good starter for the next few years. So there's still quite a few there that I like. The tight end position definitely drops off after Andrews and Pitts. So we have Kittle. Getting up there in years, though, 29, but has been just good year over year. So it's interesting. And what last year just went, top 5 again. So right, they've been pretty consistently good outside of injuries. Yeah, looking at it, 2020 only played 8 games. He was outside of the top 5, but beyond that, it was just his rookie year. So he's been pretty consistently there. He's someone that is interesting, especially the way this team is built to get just kind of that boom type player, especially with 3 teams behind me. One already has a quarterback. None have tight end. So tight end would be the priority out of the 2 there. If I'm looking at the other positions, Rashad White, James Cook, Stevenson, Aaron Jones isn't a bad option there. I don't think that they really like AJ Dillon at this point, man. He didn't get used very much last year. It's interesting. And he, I think, is on a contract year 2. Do they just move on from both of them? Do they bring Aaron Jones back on a cheaper deal because he's older? It's interesting. So the rookies here, Charbonnet, A-Chain, Miller. So there's some interesting running backs. I don't know that I want to jump on any of them over a George Kittle, though. So it really comes down to Kittle or a receiver. And we've got McLaurin. You got, a high draft pick in Christian Watson from last year, Jerry Jeudy, DJ Moore makes it like his trade, Pickens. Traylon Burke's pretty far down there. That's someone that interests me. And I feel like he was one of the winners of the draft just because he didn't get any competition, man. He has nothing outside of Chig, who, they looked good last year at tight end, and just young guys or no-namers at the other receiver position. So I think his target volume is going to be really good this year. But I don't think I need to take him here. So he's someone that I'm going to be looking at in the next round. I'm going to go with a George Kittle. the way this team is built, I've got Olave and Smith who are going to produce now, but are good for the future. I've got Taylor and Brees who are younger running backs, but this is probably more their prime than anything. So I'm going to lock in the tight end there with George Kittle. See who gets back. Terry McLaurin goes, Rashad White, TJ Hawkinson, Ramondre Stevenson, James Cook, and Dameon Pierce. So a couple more running backs off the board. And no receivers. So that's what I like to see. Watson's Judy still there. Now, it's interesting. Like Watson, I wonder if Rodgers is still there. I can understand why people may be taking him over Burks, but with the quarterback uncertainty for both Tennessee and Green Bay, do you think that Watson should be a full round ahead of Burks?
Well,
and the competition
no.
that
Yeah,
Watson has. I mean, he maybe has stability at quarterback, but maybe not.
Yeah, you could tell the story in that, like, you actually saw something from Watson where you saw nothing for Burks. And Burks is going to be dealing with a rookie eventually. And Jordan Love, while a rookie in playing time, has sat behind Rodgers for a few years now and could come out better.
Yeah, I mean, and he looked good in the game or two that he played. So it's interesting. But like from a competition standpoint, there's a lot of competition for targets. Green Bay, Watson's still probably the best of the bunch. So he's interesting. Jerry Jeudy, another guy that's interesting that we've talked about, and DJ Moore, new team there. Does he get that big time bump that we saw AJ Brown get last year, moving on to a new team with a younger quarterback? So I feel like my team could probably use a little bit more veteran presence from receiver at this point too, just given what I have in the 24-year-old Smith, 22-year-old Olave. I've got youth at the position already. I think DJ Moore, he's not old, but he's older of the bunch, and he's kind of proven that he's been good in the league. Outside of his rookie year, he's been, top 24 in PPR every single year. You hope that now with a better quarterback, he can take a step up. Obviously, a lot of that resides on Justin Fields, your boy there. So some question marks there. And the other option for me, if I'm looking at like a veteran, would be a Jerry Jeudy, who has been up and down, hasn't really been able to stay healthy. It's interesting. I feel like I would rather take the shot on a DJ Moore here. So going to pass on quarterback. There's still, a few young guys available at this point. I'm not going to get like a young stud like some of the guys have already taken here. I mean, Trevor Lawrence maybe would be the guy, and we have seen him take a big jump last year. And if I look at it too, yeah, Lawrence might be a better pick here actually for me. The way that the team is built, it looks like he's coming into his own. He's got a young receiving core with some additional pieces coming in. We'll see what Calvin Ridley is. But Doug Peterson has proven to be a quarterback developer. So we'll look at it. There's not, as I said, it's kind of fumbling through the receivers and find one that I really liked more than the rest. And with Trevor Lawrence still there, I think, take a page out of your book and go with the tight end quarterback stack here. Not necessarily stack with back-to-back picks, and we'll go Trevor Lawrence. So Trevor Lawrence off the board, DJ Moore, Christian Watson, Aaron Jones, Jerry Jeudy, Cam Akers, and DeAndre Hopkins. A lot of guys I mentioned and talked about there go off the board.
Yeah, it's a shame. I was really hoping once you came off of DJ Moore, I was hoping maybe he would slide through, and then I saw Akers. I was like, oh, maybe Akers will get to me. I could use a running back, and then also no. So that's a shame. So we're going to focus completely on the running back and the wide receiver position. Ideally, I could grab one of each. The running backs here, we're really looking at our rookies: Charbonnet, A-Chain, Kendre Miller. We also have our veterans: James Conner, Zeke, David Montgomery. We have a younger Pacheco there. A.J. Dillon, you mentioned. Tajay Spears is here. Tank Bigsby, Antonio Gibson, Khalil Herbert a little bit further down. Interesting, but as you can see, it's dried up quite a bit here. At the running back or the wide receiver position, Jameson Williams, who I do find pretty interesting. This is a nice discount on him given the injury last year, now the suspension. George Pickens is here. Treylon Burks, you mentioned. Brandon Ayuk, Amari Cooper, good veteran guy there, still producing. Hollywood Brown. But I'm going to grab a running back first since the team behind me doesn't have one yet. Got it. Yeah, I get it. But it makes sense, but I also don't trust Sleeper. Like if he went with a wide receiver and like a tight end, it wouldn't surprise me. But this is what we're gonna do here. So, I'm looking at the rookies here. I'm gonna remove Charbonnet because he's in a guaranteed timeshare. There is no outside of injury. There's no way he's becoming the one and the bell cow for that team. We also have A-Chain, who, me and you talked about. I am worried about him being kind of undersized, but has a clear opportunity. And then Kendre Miller, maybe not so much this year, assuming Kamara's still there, but in a post-Kamara world, he could excel. But I'm not worried about, not thinking about a future post-Kamara world. I'm thinking about the now, and I think A-Chain has the better opportunity now. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in Mr. A-Chain. Charbonnet does go right after me, and then George Pickens. So I am back on the clock. And I'm going to grab Treylon Burks. You mentioned him, 7th round. This is good value for a dude that doesn't, no competition. Not to say there's, tons of good wide receivers here. Jameson Williams is here. Ayuk, Amari Cooper, Hollywood Brown, Deontay Johnson, Christian Kirk, Mike Williams, Ridley, Mingo, Mims, Downs, Rice, Johan Dotson. There's a lot of good wide receivers here. But Burks has no competition around him, like you said. So I'm going to go ahead and lock him in. Dalton Kincaid goes 703. Then Ayuk, Jameson Williams, Goddard, Deontay Johnson, and Amari Cooper.
All right. And as I pivoted there to the quarterback, no quarterbacks go. Looking at it, there's only 2 teams that could have taken one, but I do think Lawrence is kind of a tier above the rest there, given what you saw from him and the youth. So I think there's still a good chance he would have went, but it's interesting to think about, looking back at it. Had I not taken him, is there a chance he still would have gotten back? But alas, we look on here as a receiver run happens that you mentioned there. We've got some rookie and Kendre Miller. We've got, if we're looking at running backs, James Conner, solid option. Dave Montgomery, another good one, I think, as well. Isaiah Pacheco. So there's not a ton really after, a couple of a good upside guy and a couple of older running backs. So I think within the next 2 picks, I want to take one. Given one team behind me only has one, but the other 2 have 3. I think I've got a good chance of getting at least one of them back. So I'm going to look to the receiver position here. We've got a Christian Kirk, who you and I have talked about, iffy on overall, just where we don't know where the targets are going to be. But who knows? I mean, he could have another good year like he did last year. He's top 12 player. We have, as we said, Calvin Ridley going to be there. 28 years old, coming off of a missed year, but I guess a year and a half. Did he got hurt in 21?
Yes, he got hurt for like the first 2 games. He came back and then he left for the mental
suspension.
Health bit, yeah.
That's right. That was the mental health bit first, and then he was suspended. Yeah. Gotcha. So it's interesting. I mean, he and Christian Kirk are, when you think about it, I imagine Kirk is older than him, but Kirk's actually 26, while Ridley's 28. Crazy to think. Both options here. Mike Williams, another one. It's interesting. I know, everyone's a little down on him and Allen because they drafted Jordan Addison. Not Jordan Addison, Johnston, who's another big-bodied guy, so it seems like he could be the replacement there for Mike Williams. Hollywood Brown, only 25 years old. Good option at receiver there as well, but he has been up and down in his career, and I don't think either of us have been particularly thrilled about him. So with the makeup of my team here, another young guy like a Dotson could be good too, but I feel like I want to get one of the last few guys that I think is going to be a producer, even if it goes down a little bit this year, in Christian Kirk. Olave and Smith and Kirk, I think it's a good, solid receiving core to pair with a Kittle and top two running backs, and then be able to get some running back depth here with my next pick. So after Kirk goes Pat Fryermuth, Anthony Richardson, Ezekiel Elliott, and Hollywood Brown on the turn, and Dalton Schultz and Kyler Murray. So we got some tight ends, some quarterbacks coming off the board. Most teams have one of each. I think it's only a couple that need one. One team behind me, Team 8, has neither. But most teams have at least one, if not both. So be interesting looking at the running backs. We still have a Kendre Miller here, James Conner, David Montgomery, David Pacheco. For me, I would rather just get a safer option. So both my guys are already on the younger end. I like Dave Montgomery here. Kendre Miller's, interesting as a rookie, but probably not going to get a ton of playing time unless we see that suspension. And even so, Jamal Williams is there. I think Detroit wants to run the ball. They have a really good offensive line. DeAndre Swift is gone, so it's really just Gibbs and Montgomery. I think this is a good spot here for David Montgomery as my third running back to get some depth. That's part of the strength of my team running back with Jonathan Taylor and Breece Hall. So gonna lock in David Montgomery here, get some more depth at that running back position. After David Montgomery, James Conner, Mike Williams, Jonathan Mingo, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Algier, and Kendre Miller.
Yeah, Kendre Miller, man. I thought he was going to make it back. I was pretty excited.
Nice, but the way your team is made up, for sure.
Yeah, it would have been perfect. I am probably going to execute the same thing I did last time here. Grab a running back, grab a wide receiver. The options to me are pretty clear. Tajay Spears does give me a moment of pause. But I do want a running back I think it can produce now, and that's going to be Pacheco. I think he's probably the one for his team. I mean, it's definitely going to be an RBBC, but at this point, who is it in an RBBC? Who's left, right? But he's left on a high-powered team. We've seen a lot of good flashes out of Pacheco. So if A-Chain doesn't really excel, I'm comfortable with Pacheco in there. So we'll lock him in. That one's easy. Rice goes, and then Michael Mayer goes, 901. Back up, looking at the wide receivers. I know you mentioned him. I mentioned him before. Johan Dotson. Seems like an easy pick for me. Saw a lot of good stuff out of him last year. He's not a rookie, but second year guy, so really young and somebody I think could produce this year. But if not, that's okay. So yeah, pretty easy shot after this. Maybe things start getting interesting. You start looking at your backup quarterback, your backup tight end, something like that. We'll see what kind of values there. But for now, this is an easy turn for me. Pacheco and Dotson is perfect. Rashad Bateman goes. AJ Dillon, Dak Prescott, Darren Waller, Brian Robertson, and Marvin Mims.
Yeah, and this is an interesting time where you're kind of looking around at scrolling down. It's rookies, it's guys in timeshares, but then there's some older guys that are interesting here too. Somebody that I think is interesting still here, Tyler Lockett, who I think everyone's out on because of the JSN draft, but so many people are scared of JSN, especially in year one, because Tyler Lockett's there. So I think he's really interesting. 30 years old, right? So definitely getting older, and not the best offense, but we've seen Geno look good, and he got a contract there. So I think you got at least one more year out of Lockett in Seattle. And even when they move on from him, I wouldn't be surprised if he lands somewhere, as a wide receiver 2 or 3, especially if it's a high-powered offense. So he's someone that I think is interesting for me here with my team, kind of as a blend of a win-now team with some youth. My receivers are all pretty young, and I think are all going to be able to be relevant for multiple years. So kind of going all in on an older receiver that risk not being relevant too far beyond this year is, something that I wouldn't mind doing here to get really, good depth at that position. Beyond that, running back, Tajay Spears, Tank Bigsby, and Roshan Johnson are kind of those last 3 in that top tier of rookie running backs. We've got Khalil Herbert still here, who is interesting because he feel like he's probably the lead back there, right? I mean, him and
Yeah, I
Roshan,
think so.
rookie, but like
Yeah,
you think it's probably Herbert that's going to lead the backfield to start.
I would think
All
so.
these rookies, who knows? So he's interesting for me as well. Don't really love too many other guys. Elijah Mitchell's there, but who knows in San Francisco, right? They're always up and down. Jamal Williams is another good veteran back. I think that's good for a year or two maybe. But at this point, I think looking at the teams behind me, they need more running back than receiver, kind of. One team only has one, the other teams have 3 and 4. Whereas, actually, two teams are just kind of completely opposite. One team has one running back, the other team has 2 receivers. So, if I'm trying to think who gets back to me, like I'm hoping for a Herbert and Lockett combination here. I think the rookie running backs combined with Herbert will help me get either Herbert or one of those young backs, whereas it's just young receivers beyond Tyler Lockett. So I'm going to take Tyler Lockett here. I like the value at this stage. Tajay Spears goes, Josh Downs, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tank Bigsby, and Gabe Davis. So got the 2 guys that I wanted back here, so not too much. Now, if I'm looking at the quarterback position, just because the guys that have really had to look there, there's still quite a bit. Tua's still sitting on the board, so he obviously some risk there, but feels like would be a pretty good value at this point for a team that waited on quarterback. Still got Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, so 2 rookies. Deshaun Watson, I know people were a little worried about what we saw last year, but he's still there. Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson, some older guys. Aaron Rodgers still there. Should be good for at least a year, right? You'd think. Derek Carr, Geno Smith. So some good older quarterbacks here. It's interesting. But for me, I'm going to go with one of the last running backs I think could really lead the backfield in Khalil Herbert. Obviously, you got the rookies that who knows what could happen there, but I'm going to lock in Khalil Herbert here, get some more depth at that position. After him, the quarterbacks that I just mentioned all start going here, so everyone's going to panic for their second quarterback. They must have heard me, Steve. Tua goes next. Leonard Fournette, somebody thinks maybe he's a quarterback too, because then goes Bryce Young, Deshaun Watson, C.J. Stroud, and Trey Lance.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, I hope you weren't thinking about going with your backup.
I did, but it wasn't any of these guys. So, that's a big win. You got Daniel Jones here. I think is interesting. Russ as a backup's fine. Kirk as a backup's fine. Aaron Rodgers, Brock Purdy, maybe. Stafford for a year. Derek Carr. Like there's plenty of good options still here. At the running back position, Gibson, if you want to take that shot, Roshan Johnson, Elijah Mitchell will probably have fantasy value. I do think there is one more potential starter in here. Actually, I mean, there's really a couple, but I think Damian Harris deserves a shout out. With James Cook being more of a pass catching specialist, there's no guarantee he's going to be the starter. It could be, Damian doing first and second down and Cook doing third. You don't really know. You also have your Cincinnati situation. Maybe Chase Brown's the guy. You also have your Minnesota situation. Maybe they trade Cook and Matson's the guy. So lots of interesting things going on there at the running back position. Wide receiver, still some solid options here. Sutton's still here. Good value there. Darnell Mooney, Kadarius Toney. That one's going to be hard to pass up. That's going to be a tough one. Jalen Hyatt, Michael Thomas, Elijah Moore, your younger, more dart throwish kind of guys. Brandon Cooks is there, Alan Lazard. And then at tight end, we still got plenty of pretty solid options here. But I am definitely not passing up on Kadarius Toney. The guy could be just absolutely elite if he could stay healthy in Kansas City. So I'm going to go ahead and lock him in there first. Elijah Mitchell goes, Evan Ingram goes. So back on the clock. It's still hard to look at like Cortland Sutton and Darnell Mooney and pass them up. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I would like to add, I can make a case for anything at this point. It is hard to look at like a Damian Harris and say no, even though he may only be like a 1-year guy, 2-year guy. Same thing with Matson. Like they're tough to pass up on given their situations. Tight end, there's still plenty here. Laporta's here, Komet's here, you got Luke Musgrave, Dolchich, Darnell Washington, Trey McBride is a nice one. Chig, you mentioned, is still here. Luke Schoonmaker. I mean, there's plenty of tight ends. So I'm okay waiting there. I think I'm going to be okay waiting on tight end, given so many just went. So yeah, it's between Damian Harris and Alexander Mattson to me. It really just depends on if you think Cook's going to get traded. If he gets traded, then Mattson's definitely the guy. If he doesn't, Harrison's probably the guy. I think I'm going to shoot for the upside that is Mattson, though. Even if Damian takes the job, I don't think he's good enough to be like a real game changer. Find depth play. But Mattson, I think, could be real good. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to draft Alexander Mattson and hope that Dalvin Cook gets traded. Darnell Mooney, Njoku, Gibson, Roshan Johnson. Sutton finally goes there at the 11-7. And then Jamal Williams, you're back up.
All right. So definitely have some flexibility. There's enough veteran quarterbacks available that I'm okay here, especially with teams having just gotten their second. I think there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A few, almost half the league has a second quarterback already. So I'm okay with some of these later guys. There's some good younger tight ends that I like, especially having Kittle. You mentioned Dulcich, McBride, Chig, rookie in Laporta, Cole Kmet. So all good options that I wouldn't mind grabbing here as a backup that I think can, especially a guy like that showed like Chig or Dulcich to pair with a Kittle for the last few years of his career. But at this first pick, going to go with the big positions here with RB or receiver first, and then we'll see if I'm going to wait on tight end again or not. It really depends on what the people behind me do, as a few teams have already gotten their second tight end, it looks like, in front of me. So if we're looking at receiver, Jalen Hyatt still there. Wouldn't mind getting some younger receivers there. Michael Thomas is an interesting one, and I don't think many people are super high on him. I've already got Olave, so wouldn't really make a ton of sense, but he could be a good value for somebody this late in the draft if he comes back to any relevance. Brandon Cooks is one that is interesting. Like, I'm pretty happy having him on a team that I'm a contender already, but like drafting him now feels different. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess because last year, I don't know where he finished last year, but I didn't feel like he was good, and definitely not what everyone expected.
No, definitely not last year. He was top 50. He was 49 in PPR, but
yeah, and people keep looking to the Dallas wide receiver 2 to produce something, and it just hasn't happened in a while.
Yeah, but he's been top 20 every year besides his rookie year, last year, and 2019, where that was his last year on the Rams. Been top 16 every year besides 21 in those three. So, more than half of his, season career, he's been a top 16 receiver. But as you said, age catches up to everyone. So for me, if I'm looking at receiver, I feel like taking a shot on a Jalen Hyatt would be the move there. But I think the running back position makes more sense, given that that's going to dry up, I think, a lot sooner than the receivers. There'll be good young guys to take shots on that you don't know, but you mentioned Damian Harris as a guy that I think is going to be able to get, a solid workload, and to get him here as my 5th running back, I think that's pretty solid at this point. So I'm going to go Damian Harris first. Singletary goes, Kareem Hunt, Cole Kmet, Sky Moore, Jalen Hyatt, and Dawson Knox. So 2 tight ends go, neither that I was really particularly interested in. You mentioned it as well. Like, I don't know if you're looking for more of a veteran or a young guy because you already have a Pitts. My team, I'm looking more at a Laporta, Dulcich, McBride, or Chig. I don't know that I'd get one of them back to me here. That's the issue. If I wait another round,
one of them will definitely not get back to you.
Yeah, I figure you will be taking
I will
one
be
of
taking
them.
a tight end unless I spot something
Yes.
crazy.
But beyond you, there is only 4 teams that have one or less tight ends. So it basically would be there's 2 teams pass on tight end, but there are 2 teams that don't have a tight end yet. So I feel like it's a good chance at least 3 go because those 2 need them at some point. So none of the receivers here, Elijah Moore, Brandon Cooks really, yell out to me. Like Alec Pierce is interesting, Wandell Robinson, but like nobody that I think is worth passing on getting one of these young tight ends. So for me, out of the bunch, Dulcich and Chig, I feel like are the ones that I'm most interested in. And Dulcich, it's interesting with him because he had a good year, right? But then you still have Alberto, who I know we aren't super high on, but then they go out and trade for Adam Troutman. So there's a little bit more competition there, but it should be a better offense, right? Versus a guy like Chig that is a little further down. I wonder if like Musgrave or Zach Ertz or Gesicki are teams that some of these other teams would take too. So if I look at, there's really not a ton else that I like though, unless I want to go with one of the quarterbacks, and doesn't particularly, call out to me. So I'm gonna go with the tight end here. I'm gonna go with the Greg Dulcich. I feel like that's best bet right now for my team, getting a younger tight end to pair with George Kittle. So locking in Dulcich. Elijah Moore goes, Sam Laporta, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Michael Thomas, and Chase Brown. So you have your pick of most of the tight ends.
Yeah, but I'm not going to pick one because the team right in front of me here has gone 2 tight ends in the last 3 picks. So I'm assuming they will not be going tight end again.
You better cross your fingers that they don't just want to screw you over.
Yeah, they don't want to go a little crazy here. Very true, very true. Looking at running back, there are some interesting options. Foreman has a chance at maybe being the starter there. In Chicago, we do got Penny there, Deuce Vaughn. McKinnon always seems to return some value. Zamir White, maybe still hopeful for he posts Josh Jacobs' world in the future. You have Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert could be something, but I'm not feeling any of them really. I mean, I'll probably never feel like drafting one again. But alas, I have just scrolled down to somebody that I would draft. But let's take a look at the wide receivers here first. We do still got Cooks. That's interesting. Elijah Moore was somebody I was keeping an eye on. Adam Thielen, good veteran depth. A nice call out maybe for you. Wandale Robinson's down here.
Yeah, I saw him a little earlier.
Yeah,
he's
John Mechie.
solid.
Yeah, good discounts on them. But at the running back position, where did my dude go? This is a 1-year shot, Mr. Samaje Perine in Denver. Assuming Javonte is going to be out for a little while, I think Samaje steps in as the 1 or 1-2. We saw him with a lot of fancy value last year. I think he'll repeat this year. So late round, just add some running back depth that maybe is pretty good. Russell Wilson goes 212, and then Cordell Patterson 313. I will go and I will grab the tight end I want, who is Chig Okonkwo.
I like Chig too. It was between him and Dulcich, I think, for me out of the bunch.
Yeah, a lot of great like breakout metrics associated with him. Not the biggest fan of having him and Burks in a team that's not really passing a lot, but
we could work some trades out, Steve.
Yeah, we can. I if you did not go tight end, I was heavily considering the old double up. I might have grabbed a Dulcich and a Chig. Trey McBride, nice shutout too. He was in contention. But anyway, just to kick things off, because we got like 5 minutes left before we need to run down the rosters. Boutte went after me, Tillman, Lazard, Myers, Musgrave, and Daniel Jones. You're back on the clock.
All right, so it's back to me. And one thing that's interesting, two quarterbacks have gone, but 2 teams behind me have Kyler and Anthony Richardson as their only quarterbacks. So seems like a spot where if I wanted to get a second quarterback, maybe kind of get ahead of the curve And I feel like a guy like an Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Geno Smith would be like a good veteran to have with Trevor Lawrence in case he struggles at all. Brandon Cook's still there, guy that I mentioned in the last go around. He's someone that I wouldn't mind getting as a good depth, another good depth wide receiver. I've already got 3 younger guys, 1 older guy. Alec Pierce would be a nice younger one, as you mentioned. Wan'Dale Robinson, had not the best rookie year, but he's been injured. He only played 6 games, but kind of on a yards per target, yards per catch was solid. So definitely some promise there. Running back, some of the later rookies there, but nothing thrilling at this point. Some of the, it's interesting. Some of the Eagles running backs, Sharp Penny and Kenny Gainwell, both still here. So interesting that they probably would be much higher without Swift, but just the chance that Swift is going to be the guy has really pushed them down. I think taking a shot on a younger running back with some of the older guys that are there wouldn't be bad either. I think the guy that I really would be interested in taking a shot on here is Aaron Rodgers. So I'm going to lock that in first and then make my decision on receiver running back next. I feel like just getting him with the chance that he has this boom year. I think worst case he's playing the whole year, so he'll be a okay backup quarterback. Even if he doesn't play great, but with the weapons that he has there, I think should be a good year. So I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers here, get my second quarterback. After Rodgers, Kirk Cousins goes, Israel Abanikanda, Alec Pierce, Jared Goff, Brandon Cooks, into Foreman. So a couple quarterbacks go. So glad to see, maybe one of them takes him. And Derek Carr probably my other one. Derek Carr, Geno Smith. I think they're both solid, but was able to get the guy that I really wanted there. And so both those Eagles running backs, it's interesting. Rashad Penny would be kind of the boom guy, whereas you get a little bit safer of an option in Kenny Gainwell. Kenny Gainwell probably is a little bit more entrenched now with being on a rookie contract still. The other 2 guys are still 1-year deals. So Kenny Gainwell is probably the guy I'd be looking at here. But I think I'd rather take a shot at a more upside receiver, and one that you mentioned there, in a Wan'Dale Robinson. In limited action, we saw him look good. So I feel like getting a younger receiver to pair with some of the older guys I'd recently taken makes sense. It becomes my 6th receiver. So locking him in. After him, Zach Ertz, Adam Thielen, Zach Evans, Rondale Moore, Hunter Renfrow, and Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah, I really wanted Thielen. I thought he was going to pair well with Burke, Stotson, and Coney.
He's a good veteran receiver for your team.
Yeah, that would have been nice. So I'm going to hunt for a wide receiver. I do want to you mentioned Derek Carr. I would like him as my backup. The team behind me's got 2 quarterbacks already, so I'm going to assume he gets back. So let's go hunting for a wide receiver here. We got Tyler Boyd, Chase Claypool. Romeo Doubs is interesting. He doesn't fill that kind of veteran need spot, but interesting nonetheless. Michael Gallup, Mechie, also interesting. OBJ, I don't know what to call that. I guess interesting. Yeah, who knows indeed. Josh Palmer might be irrelevant now. Zay Jones, he's kind of going to be dependent on Calvin Ridley to a degree. Could be interesting. Chark could be interesting. Michael Wilson sitting here. Curtis Samuel, Mecole, Tank, Allen Robinson, no. Yeah, Adam Thielen might have been the last the last wide receiver worth taking to help with some veteran depth. Darius Slayton is here. Van Jefferson is down here. That's kind of interesting. He's way down there. He should be the 2 for his team, I believe. Yeah, so that's interesting. Sterling Shepard, if healthy. Marvin Jones is down here. The problem is the veterans that I'm seeing are not veteran enough. Hey, Michael Crabtree's still here. They're not good enough to be relevant. Like, I'm not going to pass up on a young wide receiver to get the veteran that's really not going to fill the veteran hole very well. unless it's OBJ. OBJ is kind of interesting. I'm really not loving any of these guys. I'd rather wait. So call me crazy. I'm drafting Trey McBride. Gonna draft another tight end. Get three young tight ends, and then I will go and grab Derek Carr. We'll send it back to you, and this one will be your last pick here. So we had Darrell Washington went, Claypool, Scott, McKinnon, Pickett, and Michael Carter. We're on to 15-9 with your pick here.
Yeah. So still some interesting guys here. Romeo Dubes, John Mechie, a couple of guys that we have on our team. Josh Palmer. All that we're hoping have a hit for our rebuilding
all
team.
Our dart throws, yeah.
Yeah. Mechie, I think, is the most interesting one of that group at this stage. He's young, but he has, I think, the opportunity there as well. So he looks like an interesting option. I've got already 5 running backs. So most of the guys here are all kind of the same. Some rookies, kind of Gainwell that I talked about. I'd probably be able to get one of them next. So at this point, I think I would go with a young receiver. Kind of pair them up with Wan'Dale Robinson. Hope one of them can hit to be a future receiver with the top guys that I have. So I'm going to go with the John Mechie here. And that'll wrap us up here. Eric Gray, Mike Gesicki, and Chuba Hubbard round out the 15th round.
Yeah, indeed. So, again, Dynasty startup, 12-team PPR. I drafted out of the 2, my quarterbacks, Justin Fields and Derek Carr. My running backs, I have ETN, A-Chain, Pacheco, Alexander Madison, and Samaje Perine. At the wide receiver position, we got Justin Jefferson, Garrett Wilson, Traylon Burks, Dotson, and Tony. Then at the tight end, man, I got a lot of youth gambles on here. I kind of like it. Pitts, Okonkwo, and Trey McBride. So that rounds me out. Will, you were in the 9 spot.
Yeah, so I've got Trevor Lawrence and Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall, David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, and Damian Harris at running back. Chris Olave, Devonta Smith, Christian Kirk, Tyler Lockett, Wan'Dale Robinson, and John Mechie at wide receiver. And then George Kittle and Greg Dulcich at tight end.
What do you think of your team? Do you like it?
Yeah, pretty happy with my team, actually. I think, pretty good balance across the board. I think it's a team that could contend now, but also got some good key youth players to set me up for the future.
Yeah, same. I like the wide receiver depth on this team. If we were in a real draft, I don't know if I would have pulled the trigger on McBride. I like him because he's a young tight end, but I don't know. There's a lot of options there in Arizona. But, I got 3 young, unproven guys that all have flashed, so I'm happy there. The running back position scares me to death.
Yeah, so it's definitely scary for your running backs.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Big time. But if, Pitts is the guy and then one of McBride or Chig break out, then, pair them with a first, see if you can go get yourself a running back somewhere. But yeah, that was fun. That was interesting.
Yeah, good. It's been a while since we did a startup.
Yeah, quite a while indeed. So yeah, pretty fun. It is interesting seeing some of the young quarterbacks like Will Levis down there, 16th round. Kenny Pickett, 15th round. Pretty interesting. Like Trey Lance. I mean, I get Trey Lance has crazy upside with the rushing stuff, but taking them Trey Lance 5 rounds above those 2 is interesting.
Yeah. No, that's definitely an interesting option. But yeah, a lot of that's going to be driven by ADP and something like this. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Someone like him would have gone much earlier because he has the potential to start this year. And there's really not a ton of guys around him from the quarterback position.
Yep. And then you got some question marks like Zeke and Fournette went. They're not on teams.
Yeah.
Where is Mixon actually going to go? Where's OBJ actually going to go? Some very league dependent moves on that front.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, that's going to wrap us up for today's episode. In 2 weeks, guess what? It's probably time to do a regular mock.
Yeah, it's getting close to that. We're in May.
Yeah. ADP should be a little bit better. So yeah, I guess our next one will be a regular mock. We'll see how things look post-draft. Until then, folks, trust your board.